For the past 12 months, I've been using Claude as my daily driver. Now, before then, I was using ChatGPT every single day. Now, in this video, I want to explain to you why I made this switch to Claude in the first place, what I've learned over the past 12 months that makes me love it even more, and where actually ChatGPT outshines Claude. Now, at the very end, I have some FAQ and some questions that you might be asking about the two, so stick around for that as well. Now, before we get started, I think it's important to name off a couple quick things. One, I am not paid by Anthropic to make a video like this. It's just something that I love to do, and I use this stuff every single day. So I figure if I use it and it could be helpful to somebody else, I might as well make a video about it. And then two, I really do think ChatGPT outshines Claude in different ways, and I don't think one of them is universally better than the other. It all comes down to how you work and how you work each of these systems as well. So when I first got started with Claude, actually the reason why was because I got into vibe coding and hearing about that term and thinking, man, it would be so cool to start building things on my own. And it really has been cool. Over the past 12 months, I've been able to build some internal tools and apps for the workplace that I'm at. And then on top of that, I've been able to build some things like this quiz platform for my kids. In fact, it's been so cool to see over the past few months, they've been reading about 20 books per month and then taking quizzes on those books with this app I made for them. And what's so cool is they take the quiz, they earn points, they can spend those points on things like an ice cream date or staying up late or those kinds of things. And then on top of that, there's a game that they get to play afterwards that is a runner where they're running and jumping over obstacles and then taking other quizzes on grammar that they've learned throughout these books, and they're fighting bosses. And it's so cool because they ask me to play it all the time. And I'm blown away at what you can build. Now, that being said, I know that you can actually today do really great things with ChatGPT that you might not have been able to do at least as well a year ago when I started using Claude. And so that's definitely not a knock on ChatGPT. It's just 12 months ago when I started doing this, man, Claude was so good. Now, today, I've seen some incredible things that people have been able to build with ChatGPT 5.5 and Codex, and it's so cool to see. But both are incredible. And that's why I got started with it in the first place. So why do I prefer Claude today? Well, it to me comes down to a few really important things. And one of those items is, in my opinion, Claude is definitely a better writer, feels more human, and it thinks through things in a way that a human thinks through things as well. And let me show you what I mean by that. Here is a side-by-side comparison of two of the exact same prompts, both in ChatGPT and inside of Claude. And I want to show you a little bit of the breakdown. For both of these, I did write me a sales script for a janitorial service trying to sell a local bank. I just inputted the same prompt in both side by side so we can kind of compare them one after another. And on the ChatGPT side, hey, my name is Brian with my company name. We work with local businesses here in the area, helping keep their facilities clean, professional, and client ready. I know banks especially have to maintain a really high standard when customers walk through the door. So I just wanted to introduce myself and see who currently handles the janitorial services, which is totally fine. And it's like asking a question right off the bat, and it sets the tone from the beginning. But let's look at Claude on the comparison side. And it starts with, hi, I'm Brian with my company. We're a commercial cleaning company that works specifically with financial institutions here in the town. Do you have a couple minutes, or is there a better time to connect? And also gives you an objection response. So if they're busy, no problem. Would this day or time work better for a quick 5-minute call? So I just love that from the beginning because it understands that I'm trying to speak to a bank, a local bank at that. And it helps understand that from the very beginning. And it also plans for the objection as it comes rather than just saying, hey, I'd like to introduce myself. Let's go a little bit further. And so let's go with this. I know banks especially have to maintain a really high standard when customers walk through the door. So I just wanted to introduce myself and see who currently handles your janitorial services, which again, I think that's fine, but I think it kind of misses the human piece. And here's where Claude, I think, shines with this. The reason I reached out specifically to a bank or to your bank is that you've got needs most offices don't: secured areas, after hour access protocols, customer facing lobbies that need to look spotless every single morning, and confidential documents that can't just be left out. We build our cleaning around those realities. Is your current cleaning handled in-house, or do you work with an outside service? I love this so much. Now, I may not use some of these words specifically or how it's laid out exactly, but it sets the tone with, okay, I understand you as a business and how you operate. I'd love to understand, do you do this inside in-house, or do you have an outside service that you're working with? And so we can go further and kind of look at, more of the text here, but I think it kind of shows like Claude to me is just more personal, and it's just more human sounding, and it thinks through things in a human perspective rather than just here's the answer, here's what you should do this next. Now, one of the other things I love so much about Claude and just the chat interface, we're not even talking about Claude code here or vibe coding, and what that is just the artifacts that are able to be created inside of Claude. And you have things like documents, you have HTML copy, you have just interfaces that they are able to create inside the chat that are so cool and easy to work with. But that being said, I wanted to show you practically what that can look like using this same sales technique with a bank and a janitorial service. So what you're looking at here is a really quick prompt. I said, create an artifact of a pre-sales call tool. I'd like for this to be a demo showing the summary of a business being sold and sold to, potential objections they could have for purchasing, along with the verbiage I can use to help close the deal. So the idea with this quick artifact that we're putting together is I'd like to practically see what a person might be thinking and have some of those things right in front of me very easily. So the reason I love this so much is because we can practically see right in front of us a few different things. So this is obviously a demo, it's made up data, but essentially if you were going into a sales call and you want to be prepped beforehand so that you can understand where somebody's at and what they're doing and some objections that they might have, as well as some sales communication that you can fire back, then this is incredibly helpful, especially if you have a sales team. So take a look at this. This is a made up bank, Cascade Community Bank. Maybe it's real, but it's made up here. And let's see, it has 4 locations. The square footage for these 4 is 38,000 square feet. Potentially, we could see $6,500 a month based off of getting this actual lead to close. And so what's cool is it just lays this out so intuitively and easy for us to see right here. And so we're seeing the business profile, and we're seeing the lead with these where it's just like, okay, trust and security, one local partner, customer facing image, and basically here are some things that you should be talking about in the call. And then let's get into objections and what to say. So they could have a price objection. You're more expensive than who we use now. What to say? I'd actually be surprised if we were the cheapest. That's usually a red flag in the industry. So good. Security objection. We can't have just anyone in the building after hours. That's exactly the conversation I'd want to have if I were in your seat. So I totally get it. Everyone we'd assign is background checked, bonded, insured, and we work entirely within your access protocol. So however you operate, we operate as well, and so forth. So it goes through all of these objections in a really easy place right here. And this is just like one thing that you can do. You can build these so that as soon as a sales call comes in, you can ask it to create this exact same thing, and you have it right in front of you when you're on Zoom and having a conversation with somebody. And just think about that in every industry. It doesn't have to be just a janitorial. That's just one aspect. But whatever you're in, whether that's in coaching or maybe you're in a different types of sales industry, whatever it is, there's so much opportunity here. One of the other things I really love about Claude is using it as a thought partner. Now, clearly you can do that with any AI that you use, but one of the things I love about Claude is that it kind of pushes back. And I don't necessarily see that when I'm using other platforms like ChatGPT. I kind of see a yes man often. And I'd like to show you what I mean by that, because I think it's important, because we don't always want a yes man. We want somebody or something, I guess, here to push back on our ideas and let us know where we're seeing missing gaps, or let us know where we might not be seeing the whole truth here. So let me show you what I mean by that. So on here, this is ChatGPT on the left and then Claude on the right. And so ChatGPT on the left, here's what we said. Here's my plan. I'm going to cold walk into 20 banks on Monday and pitch them on the spot. A good strategy. So it's just like a really quick prompt just to like ideate. If I'm going on a walk, I might say something like this when I'm talking with Claude or ChatGPT. And so the same prompt on both sides. So let's take a look at ChatGPT. Right off the bat, it starts with yes. One adjustment though, don't think of it as pitching 20 banks. Think of it as starting 20 conversations and trying to leave with 3 to 5 follow-up appointments. For janitorial services, cold walk-ins can absolutely work because, and here's all the reasons why it could work. But the mistake most people make is walking in like a salesperson instead of a professional local business owner. Here's a better strategy. Goal number 1, get the right contact. Goal number 2, create familiarity. 3, book a walkthrough quote. and don't try to close on the spot. So then it also says, hey, if out of 20 banks, maybe 10 will brush you off and 5 will give you a manager, 3 may actually engage, and then 1 or 2 could turn into legitimate opportunities. So it's pretty good on what you should be considering, but it totally just went with the yes. And here's where we go to Claude. And it says, honestly, walking into 20 banks cold on Monday and pitching on the spot is a tough way to spend a day. Let me be straight about why, then give you something that actually works better. So the core problem, banks don't make decisions at the branch level, and the person at the front desk has zero authority to act on a pitch. You'd be spending your best energy on people who literally can't say yes. It's the equivalent of pitching a YouTube strategy to a viewer instead of a creator. It's just the wrong room. So a few specific issues. The volume is self-defeating. 20 pitches in a day means you're rushing each one, getting worn down, and reciting the same lines on autopilot by bank number 6. The quality collapses. You'd do better with 3 good conversations than 20 bad ones. So, I mean, this is just complete pushback. Whereas ChatGPT said, yes, it's a great idea. Here's some things to consider, but I think you're going to crush it. And Claude's like, yeah, I don't think that's a really good idea. And let me show you why I don't think it's a good strategy. And I think what's great about this is we're saying, hey, is this a good strategy? And on both ends, Claude, in my opinion, it pushed back and gave some really good feedback on why it might not be a good idea. And then ask some questions before trying to give you an answer, because this is a pretty bit vague. Here's my plan. I'm going to cold walk into 20 banks on Monday and pitch them on the spot. Well, for Claude, it's like, well, what's the goal? What are you trying to accomplish here? A few quick questions would help me give you something genuinely useful. What are you pitching the banks on? Who actually needs to say yes to this type of work? Is there a reason banks specifically versus other targets? And it's just trying to get down to the root of what we're talking about here. Now, I know you could go into the internal settings for both ChatGPT and Claude and try to give it some internal system settings to say, like, don't be a yes man, push back when I ask a question. But the fact that in Claude, it's just built in naturally is amazing. And I just love that. Now, where is Claude actually worse than ChatGPT? There's a few areas that I think are prominent, and if you're a power user using Claude on the daily, you understand some of these. And the very first one is the usage limits. Now, what you're going to find is there's usage limits every 5 hours, and then there's also usage limits over the course of a week. What's really interesting about it is here a few months ago, you used to run into those limits very quickly. After a recent partnership with SpaceX, we're actually seeing the usage double, which is incredible, but we're still seeing that in many cases, the usage limits do get reached very easily, especially if you're using Claude all day long or daily. I actually find myself upgrading from the $20 a month plan up to the $100 a month plan. And to me, it's totally worth it, but it is a true reality that if you're using the $20 per month plan, you're probably going to reach those limits fairly quickly if you're using Claude often. Another problem with Claude is that there's actually no image generation. It's just non-existent. That being said, ChatGPT though has image 2 that is incredible. It outpaces Nano Banana and it does incredible work. So that definitely wins on the ChatGPT side versus Claude. Another area where I think ChatGPT actually outshines Claude is with its GPTs. Now, if you're a business owner or you're somebody creating products for your clients and you want to get AI into their hands very easily, it's actually a bit harder to do with the skills portion inside of Claude versus ChatGPT. And the reason why is just the user experience. What you actually do in ChatGPT is just create a GPT and send a link to your customers, and now they have access to it and they can use it. Whereas inside of Claude, you actually have to create a skill and create a link to download the skill, and then your customers have to install the skill. So there's extra steps. And so if your customers and clients aren't technically savvy or they're not using AI like you are, I would say ChatGPT totally wins in the comparison between the two when it comes to those types of things like GPTs and skills. ChatGPT is the winner there for sure. So now I'm going to jump into the FAQ section of this video, starting with number 1, which is, can I bring my ChatGPT memory with me? So if you're using ChatGPT and you want to make the move over to Claude, you're probably worried about losing that data that you've been training your ChatGPT with over the past few months, maybe even years. And I will tell you, it's actually fairly simple to make that transition over. It was something I was kind of worried about as well. And there's kind of two options. You either do start from scratch, or Claude does have a built-in import tool where they tell you the exact prompt to give over to ChatGPT so that it can give you enough data to transfer over to Claude. Now, one thing to be considering is when you make this transition over, if you're doing a full data transition, Claude does have a file limit, and that could be too big, but it can help you grab the most important things and break that up over multiple files if you need to as well. And you totally can make that switch over fairly easily. Question number 2, do they cost the same? Now, yes and no, and here's what I mean. You can start with both of them on the free version, but you're going to reach limits very easily, and you're not going to get full access to the tools and scope that are included. So I do recommend at least paying for them if you're going to use them. Keep this in mind, ChatGPT does have an $8 a month option, at least at the time of filming, and that $8 a month option lets you use a good chunk of ChatGPT, but it does include ads along with it, so you're going to fight ads at the same time. But if you go to the $20 per month for both ChatGPT and Claude, what you're going to find is they're fairly similar. One caveat here is that Claude will hit its limits at the $20 per month if you're going to be using it very often, but for the most part, if you're just the average business owner wanting to use some of the tools and try to build little things with it, then you're probably going to be fine with the $20 per month, but that's where they both meet at the same point. Now, the next question is, should I cancel ChatGPT or use both? And my honest answer is, for a lot of people, the smart answer is to use both of them. Now, I know that might not be exactly what you want to hear because it is $40 per month if you're going to use both of them at the same time. But to me, it's absolutely worth it. I find that although Claude is my daily driver and I'm using it all day, every day, and I'm building with it and I'm creating with it and it's got use of my computer and there's so much that we're working on together, I do find myself heading over to ChatGPT for several reasons. And you've heard about them: the image generation, the GPT building, and some other strategy things that happen inside of ChatGPT that just make it worth having both of them as options to use on the daily. And one other question or mention here is that doesn't ChatGPT have artifacts? You know, I did talk about artifacts earlier in this video and how I love to see them work. And it is true that ChatGPT does have canvases and allows you to work side by side within those canvases. I have just found that for my use and how I use them, ChatGPT just doesn't amount to what I see Claude doing. And that's no knock on Chat. It's just how I use artifacts and how I use these things to build both documents and HTML files and be able to see things visually. To me, it's just a better experience for myself, although I know a ton of people who love canvases. And I found myself using canvases a lot in the past, and I definitely don't knock them at all. So with all of that being said, I hope you understand at this point, I'm not saying you need to make the switch over to Claude if you're using ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini or whatever it is that you're using as your daily driver. But what I am saying is that if you've got something and you're going to use it, there's probably so much more that you're not using out of that tool. And for me, I've just found that Claude has so much and it's continuously growing and adding new tools that I am probably going to stick with it in the long haul. Now, whatever you're choosing, I'm totally game with it. I would just say use it to the best of your ability, keep making with it, keep growing with it, and you will see incredible things when you're building using these tools. So if that's been helpful for you, go ahead and subscribe, like, and share, and we'll see you in the next video.